Mrs. Cordero?
Here.
Mr. Valencia?
Present.
Mr. Lara? Or,
Here.
I'm sorry, Mr. Holland said. Sorry about that.
All right, great. So we've introduced the interpreters. Let's have the floor. Your voice is so high. Can one of you guys come up and help lead us in the pledge, please? Our student lead, one of our student leaders. Don't everybody jump up at once. Not it, come on all up. Then you guys are supportive of each other. Come on, bring it on. Bring it on. Right there's good. Perfect. Yes, they're facing it. We'll follow your lead. This one out.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you guys for doing that impromptu. That was awesome. And we'll just go straight to your reports from that now that you're warmed up. Oh, excuse me. Hang on just a sec. Can you report out for us, Dr. McDuffie, on closed session, please?
Yes, we had one report out for conference with legal counsel. The Board of Education voted unanimously to approve the settlement agreement on case OAH case number 20221-00238.
All right, you guys are on.
Testing? Okay. Good evening, board members. I'm Eva Paragan-Luzano. I'm a proud Jimenez Knight. Today, I'm representing the middle school portion of Jimenez. I'm here also with my partner in crime, Andres, who will talk about his elementary school experience. Jimenez has proven to me time and time again how the faculty as well as the peers have given love as well as solace towards students. I'm glad to see the cultural embracement as well as the helping hand of the faculty. This has given Jimenez a rightful title as my second home. As the district has granted us selected students the honor of being in the leadership program, I've learned from the last forum the financial distribute of money towards the school system. Here we were prompted to give out our say as students on how we wanted to dispense of the money. In this meeting, we also got a sneak peek of the kitchen. Here I saw that our ranch, as well as our chili, was freshly made. And although I'm not much of a ranch fan, I'm glad to hear that my best friend who loves ranch is eating it healthily. The leadership program asked us to create a student action project in which we chose kindness as our leading project. This will allow us to stimulate a kindness epidemic, which I'm very happy to hear. As I've seen in the older grades especially, there has been a frugality in kindness. So I hope that our project will be able to help the small kindergartners to the moody 8th graders. As the leadership program has shown me my strong qualities as well as my weak qualities. I am very grateful, considering I know that not everyone has this opportunity. Thank you. And buenas noches.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. My name is Gavin Cooper, and I'm a 6th grader from Bill Libin Elementary. I love Libin because it is so advanced and beautiful and has lots of opportunities for us as students, such as the tinkering lab. It has room for various projects, such as Project Lead the Way, Robotics Club, and lots of other ways to be creative. As you know, I'm a member of the student advisory team. During our last meeting, we had the chance to taste test all the amazing food being provided to all the students in SMBSD. Not only was it good, but it was healthy. We also had the opportunity to use an app called Thought Exchange that allowed us to share feedback anonymously. We provided feedback on what us as students at all our schools want to see improved, such One thing we discussed was seeing drink options for people with allergies or lactose intolerance. I enjoyed being able to share my feedback anonymously, and I look forward to seeing these improvements being made. Being part of the student advisory team has been very enjoyable. I enjoy being able to meet other students throughout the district. This has allowed me to become more confident speaking in front of large groups of people. This has also allowed me to become more comfortable speaking with strangers that I do not know. Thank you, board members, superintendent, and community members for your time this evening.
Hello, board members. My name is David from Ariana's Junior High, and something that I'm proud of at my school is the teachers welcoming other students at my school. At our last leadership meeting, we met with Carlos Marta, and he is a coordination of the food services. And we went to see how they make the food there, and we see how they make the ranch and the granola bars. The thing that we are working on is the kindness campaign at my school, is doing a staff shout out at my school. Students will write their own shout out about a staff member or a selected nomination from other students in the school and read them out loud for the whole school to hear. Thank you, board members, for the opportunity to speak to you.
Hello, board members. My name is Kenneth Corona. I am from Ontiveros Elementary School. One thing I like about my school is that our school is very clean. I'm working on my confidence, especially in presentations, but this program really helps me out. In our November meeting, I interviewed Sam Humphrey from the Plan Alignment Department. We asked him what his department does, and he said his department guides all the state and federal money to the right places in schools. In our follow-up meeting, we had an interactive lesson with Sam where we got to write down ideas of where us board members thought we should put money to. We identified a few areas that could use funding, such as different school lunches, bilingual support, and counselors for students that need them. I'm working with my board to help make a kindness campaign. We are planning on making a kindness week in the month of February. I propose the idea of Your Kindness Links Us Together, in which students make links of paper with the kind messages on them, and we will link them all together and hang them in the cafeteria to show that all the students' kindness really does link everyone together. And I'm looking forward to letting every student know that they are loved. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, board members. My name is Andres Avila Esteves. I attend Jimenez Elementary School, and an aspect I admire from my school is how they embrace every culture. This also means that my school values being kind, being respectful, and being responsible. For my last forum, we learned about making granola and ranch. In addition, we also discussed how the district owns, distributes, and spends $60 million every year. They have also signed a kindness project. However, for that project, Evolette and I are still currently deciding what to do. The project is currently including every grade level at our school. In this program, I have learned to appreciate being a leader since it could give me an opportunity to make a difference in my school. Gracias por su tiempo.
Got to turn mine on too. Fantastic, you guys. All super well spoken. We really appreciate you guys being part of our meeting tonight. That's a real important for us to hear your voices, to hear what's going on with you, but also to meet you and see what great young people we have on our campuses. So we really appreciate you guys putting in the effort and the time to be here. Garrett, memorized, really? Amazing. Very good. No, all of you guys were really well spoken, and we appreciate that. And then your parents, I know I saw a few cameras up there, a few phones up there. So thank you guys for sharing your kids with us and your support for them, because they are amazing examples of what's going on. So you guys are.
John, you mind if I also chime in?
Mr. Valencia would like to chime in.
So good evening, students. My name is Ricardo Valencia, and I'm also a teacher at Santa Maria High School. So I'm excited about the possibility of having you on my classroom in the near future. I did want to just commend you all tremendously, because you all spoke as well or better than some of the adults that speak to us, because you were prepared, right? And even though, you might have been a little bit nervous, you still did a great job. And if you were nervous, we couldn't tell, which is really great public speaking. Some of the things that you all have brought up have been things that your peers have brought up also in the past 2 years that I've been on the school board. Some of the things, I looked at some of the pictures of some of the feedback that you all gave and some of the ranking, but supporting bilingual supports in the classroom, providing more drink and healthy food options was another thing that I saw in the minutes. I saw fixing bathrooms, providing more counselors, even addressing things like lactose intolerance, right, which addresses the options, right, that you all mentioned. So the things that you all are speaking to us about are very much on our minds, thanks to your advocacy, because as the adults, we're not in the classrooms the way you are every day. We're not in the schools every day. And so I just wanted to say thank you all very much for your leadership. This has been a dream, I know, for me since I've been on the board these last 2 years to see something like this taking place. So it's really nice to see it come to fruition. So we're here to serve you. So please don't hesitate to contact us if we can be of any extra help.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys again so much. I will move along now to item 7E, recognition. The board and superintendent and the district would like to recognize Crystal Guzman from El Camino Junior High School. She is the Santa Barbara County Education Office 2023 Distinguished New Educator. Tonight, we're celebrating her. Each year, school administrators, colleagues, and others countywide are invited to nominate new teachers who demonstrate early career success and outstanding skill. Ms. Guzman was nominated and selected. Ms. Guzman demonstrates skill and positivity in her role teaching English language arts and leadership at El Camino Junior High. She has reignited school spirit on campus and was the winner of the Nicholson Hero Award for her tireless determination to improve El Camino. Ms. Guzman is said to be a master of teaching essay writing, and she implements skillful strategies and tools in the classroom with the grace of a veteran teacher. The colleague who nominated Ms. Guzman wrote, "Crystal never fails to ask how she can improve. She asks questions about the many skills teachers must master: content, pedagogy, and school climate. She handles new concepts beautifully and with curiosity. Ms. Guzman has been teaching for 4 years. She is enrolled with Cal Lutheran's Graduate School of Education and hopes to one day be a principal. Hopefully we'll be so lucky as to have her. In addition to being an exceptional teacher, Ms. Guzman is highly respected by all staff, students, and families of the El Camino community. She is also respected and appreciated by the rest of us at Santa Maria Bonita School District.
And excuse me, President Hollinshead,
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to say just a couple of words because I was actually at the event along with some of her family here. I remember some of you there at the event for the Santa Barbara County new or distinguished new educator of the year in 2022. And I thought to myself, the Santa Barbara County office is recognizing our teacher, and that is enough for us here at Santa Maria Bonita School District to recognize excellence in our teaching corps and recognize Ms. Guzman for the work she's done. I am just very proud of you. I'm proud to be a part of an organization where you're teaching in. I was able to visit your classroom and see the work that you do with our young people in junior high school. And that's not easy. And so I just want to thank you for that. We want to recognize you for the work that you have done for Santa Maria Bonita School District. And Crystal Guzman, we celebrate you. So congratulations.
Thank
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The students before me were very prepared. I'm not so prepared, but it's okay. I just want to say thank you. I'm very proud to receive this recognition, and I'm very humbled to receive it. And I have amazing students that make my job that much easier. Yes, they give me a couple of gray hairs every now and then, but that's okay. I also have great colleagues that I've learned so much from, and I continue to learn from. And I have an amazing family who is super motivating and reminds me why I do what I love. And so thank you, especially thank you to Ms. Cordero and Mr. McDuffie for attending the event. It's been one of the biggest highlights in my career so far. Hopefully not the last. But thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks. It is. It's fun every now and then. Yeah. Oh, yes. We can run them. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I mentioned it in Crystal's ear, but she did get her start, and I think her passion came from the experience that she had working at the Boys and Girls Club. And that's actually where I first knew her.
Actually, I think she might have gotten her inspiration from working at El Camino Junior High School, where I attended junior high. Go Italians!
Does anybody else want to add anything about Crystal? Okay, see, I knew it. All right, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so item 8 will be public comment. And public comments are intended for members of the public to address the board on items involving the school district. Such testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each or 450 words per person or subject, and 15 minutes on each total on each topic. If an answer to a specific question is requested, the board president will, if appropriate, direct administration to respond in writing. Do we have any public comment?
We have none.
We'll move on to item 9, approval of the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
And moved by Mr. Valencia, seconded by Mr. Lara, that the agenda be approved. Roll call.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead.
Aye. Moving on to item 10, consent.
Mr. Holland said, I just wanted to make one poll, item A. I just wanted to correct a typo from the minutes.
Okay. Are you ready to go, Ms. Cornejo?
Right.
Okay.
On page 12 of our board packet, it's the minutes of our last board meeting on December the 14th. It says clerk of the board, currently Rick Valencia. It should read Ricardo Valencia. It's part D of on page 12 of our packet.
I will make that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
That's all.
okay. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't pick that up either. Awesome. Okay, so move to approve the consent.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with as amended.
I'll second. Roll call.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead.
Aye. Motion passes. We'll move on to item 11, action items. Item A is resolution number 22-08, a resolution of the Board of Education of the Santa Maria Bonita School District authorizing the execution and delivery of a ground lease, a lease agreement, a trust agreement, a certificate purchase agreement, a continuing disclosure certificate, and escrow agreement with respect to the execution and delivery of Santa Maria Bonita School District refunding certificates of participation, authorizing the execution and delivery of such certificates, evidencing principal and aggregate amount of not to exceed $17 million, authorizing the distribution of an official statement of connection therewith, and authorizing the execution of necessary documents and certificates and related actions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hollinshead. That title is a board item in and of itself. It does contain everything that you need in any board item to take action tonight. But to talk specifically about the transaction that is underneath all of that verbiage, and underneath this transaction, I have Mr. John Barrissey from Raymond James. He's been working as our underwriter for quite some time. We're hoping that we're joined by our municipal advisor. He actually works for the district, provides us advice and expertise to make sure that as we enter this transaction, we're well informed. And so he's traveling and may have experienced some delays along the 101. But nonetheless, his experiences and his expertise is offered as a part of the process. He was on a call with us today as we spoke with Moody's to work towards setting our rating. But he and Mr. Barrissey have been working on this together for quite a while. We've been examining this opportunity for about 3 years. And now things look like they may be lining up to make it possible. So I'll let Mr. Barrissey step in and walk you through a few slides and then be available for any questions you might have.
Welcome back.
Good evening.
Is that right there? Okay, good. There we go. Good evening, members of the board, superintendent and staff. That was an impressive speed read for sure. And that's a mouthful on the certificates of participation. We always know it's difficult to get through that document set. So apologize for being so thick, but it is necessary and all those are important parts of this process. So as Mr. Beecher mentioned, we've been looking at this opportunity since 2020. You actually approved to issue something similar then, and then COVID hit, and unfortunately the markets were very volatile, but we've gotten to a point now where you can issue these as tax exempt versus taxable. So that's a real positive and represents lower interest rates. And even with everything you're reading in the news about inflation and higher interest rates, I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why it still makes sense to take a look at this and address any questions you have on what's in front of you. So let's see here if I can turn, let's see, I think we're working on getting that up there. Okay. Excellent. So the district has multiple types of debt outstanding. You know, you've passed a general obligation bond and issued those series, and you've actually refinanced a portion of those as well in the past. So this would be similar with respect to that, just replacing the old high interest rate debt with lower interest rate debt. And you have two certificates of participation outstanding. And the difference between the general obligation bond and the certificates of participation, we just call them COPs. So I'm just going to refer as that. It's just a little easier to get out. But the COPs are what we call a general fund obligation. So this is debt that you're paying out of your general fund and makes real difference in savings for programs and other monies that you use those monies for, if you can refinance them. And below you can see the district's been very prudent in taking a look at its debt structure and has very short-term debts remaining. So we're looking at the 2013 COPs there, which is in that second column. These are the ones that we're looking at refinancing. And you still have 6 years on a 2019 lease agreement. And those have been refinanced several times over the years to do something very similar to what we are proposing here today. So here's an estimated refunding savings and sources and uses of funds. So in the current market, and these are rates as of last week, and we've picked up about 1/4 point less. So hopefully that continues. But in any event, where we are today, you have $639,000 of gross savings, which ties to this number right here. And you can see this is the savings and how they're realized annually between $50,000 and $60,000 to the district's general fund. And this is net of all financing costs. Then we break it down to your estimated sources and uses of funds, which shows you the par amount of the certificate. So that's the total amount of the loan. Net original issue premium is what investors pay. So they pay actually above $1 to purchase your transaction. And then we show the repayment of the existing COPs, bond insurance, which is similar to paying points on your mortgage, where you pay upfront for a lower overall cost. And you have to make sure that that premium is less than what you're paying in debt service, which in this case, it definitely pencils for the district. We have cost of issuance. This is inclusive of your legal fees, municipal advisor fees, rating fees. Great news today. We can mention that the district was affirmed its AA3 rating for its general fund. Its GO rating is always one notch above, and that's a AA2, which is very, very strong. That's only 2 off the maximum rating you can have. So over time, you've had in the A range, now you're in the AA category, which represents a lower cost of borrowing. It's very similar to a home mortgage, where if you're at the 720 and above, you get the higher interest rate. That's where you are. So you're in the very high credit rating, and that'll prove well to get a lower interest rate. So that's a great job. And Mr. Beecher did a great job with the rating analyst last week when we went through that process. We just heard that this morning. So great news. So taking a look at, actually, before I move forward, any questions on this slide on the savings, costs, sources and uses of funds, anything there before I go into the market and interest rates?
These are at the current interest rate that we're at, or
They're slightly higher than where we are today. So we put this together about 7 or 8 days ago. And we've seen, as I mentioned, a nice, what we call a rally or lowering of rates since then, but they can always go back up and get back to this level or maybe worse, but we're hoping it improves. We're going to be in the market in less than 3 weeks. So we've got a pretty good chance to hopefully pop in there and grab what we can for you.
all right, thank you.
Yeah. So here's a chart showing, going back to, it's about 15 years old, showing interest rates and how they fluctuate. You'll see this MMD up there, and that's the municipal market data interest rate index. And that's something that we use in the bond business for taking a look at the 10, 20, 30-year range. And your COPs are in duration of 10 years. So that's a really good one to take a look at. So over time, what's been interesting is we've seen that over the past year, starting really about a year ago, almost, where investors started to pull their money out of the market. And I'll go over that more in the next slide, but we've seen interest rates increase. The Fed funds rate is up 4.25% year over year. And the Treasury securities, home mortgages, we're at a point a year ago where you could get a 30-year mortgage for, under 3%. Now you're at 6.5, 7. So all of that has been impacted greatly by the inflation that we've been experiencing and the expectation of the Federal Reserve in their comments about raising short-term interest rates. So while your bonds aren't directly tied to that index on the rate that you get in the marketplace, it impacts every school district in California, because the market sentiment is that interest rates are just going up in general. So while we had all of that, then we get to November or so of last year, and it was interesting. So that really put a gridlock in the market where folks couldn't access money because rates were high. So issuers stopped issuing bonds. And so we've seen a dearth of supply, which has created this opportunity since, to give you a sense, since, let's see, November 1st, the market has decreased municipal tax exempt rates 1.5% in 60 days or so. So that's a big move too. So I think it's going to continue. And we're hoping we time it right here. There's going to be volatility because in 2 weeks we have a Fed meeting. They're probably going to raise short-term rates again, 25 basis points or 0.25. But that's already kind of what we call baked into the market. So they're expecting that. As long as that holds true and it's nothing more, I think you'll see this kind of steady flow of interest rates, and we'll get, in a range of pretty close to what you saw on that slide. Hopefully better than that. Then when you take a look at this slide, this goes to show you what the impact of the Fed funds rate has been on the municipal bond market. You take a look here, what I was talking yesterday to a group, and we were talking about every time you see something red on here, there's been a major event in the marketplace, where the first point in 2015, that was Brexit. Investors started pulling their money out of the market. Right here was the 2016 presidential election. With that result, investors thinking that equities were going to rally less in tax law change, so that caused that pull out of the market. And then you take a look at this was COVID, which was also very significant. But what's interesting about this little run we've had here, it's for longer duration, and also it hasn't been as dramatic as some of these larger movements here, like we saw in COVID, where there was a massive selling, and then once the federal government intervened, folks started buying bonds again. But nonetheless, folks bought all these bonds during this time at very low interest rates, the lowest interest rates cycle we've ever had. And now they're selling them because they're showing losses and they want to invest their money in other products. So just an explanation of the market in general, and the municipal market in general, like I said, was a lot lower last year, as you can see on this upper chart here. So that's an overview of the market. Any questions on interest rates or timing or anything like that?
So if interest rates are going to potentially increase, are you saying interest rates are going to potentially increase? And if so, would it be by that point to 5%? Does that all depend on, for example, if hypothetically we approve this tonight, does that mean we kind of get to lock in like a lower interest rate, or is that not necessarily the way it goes?
Yeah, so the 0.25 that was mentioned is from the federal government, the Federal Reserve. So that there's a 93% chance the markets feel like that's what will happen.
Mhm.
Then they will have comments that will direct the market kind of one way or the other on where they're feeling that, you're starting to see numbers today where consumer spending was lower than expected in December during the holidays. So that was actually a surprise. And so interest rates dipped severely because the market was not expecting that. But the Fed also said that economic conditions aren't changing to warrant any stopping from what they're doing. So you have market feels one thing and then they say another. So there's a little bit of distrust there. But I would say that, as long as the 25 basis points is what happens and the comments aren't a complete turnaround from what they've been doing. And if they are a complete turnaround from what they've been doing, that'll benefit you greatly because that means rates will come down sharply and quickly. But if they, say we're going to be raising interest rates another 3%, which is highly unlikely, then you may see a sharp uptick in interest rates, something from what that deviates from what they've been explaining. So but we should be in I think a nice steady pace going into that.
And I'll add really quickly, Mr. Valencia, when I'm refinancing my mortgage, because that is a small transaction, I can lock in a rate with whoever's doing that for me. They bundle a bunch of loans together away from their office, and those loans get kind of packaged and serviced elsewhere. And that's why they can lock in that rate. For us, we're going to essentially step directly into the market with this security, I believe is the way I would describe it.
Mhm.
And so wherever the market is that day, that will create the rate. And so what John has presented tonight is the assumptions that we're using, the team is using to say now is a good time to step into the market. So tonight's action authorizes the use of all of those documents in the resolution title so that if those market conditions hold where they are or improve, we'll have everything we need to step into the market and achieve those savings. And if things go in the opposite direction, which is kind of what happened when we had this conversation in 2020, if things go in the other direction, we're going to put this back on the shelf and then bring it back out when things make sense. That's where we are tonight. Things started to make sense tonight. And in John's graphs and charts in his discussion, he's describing that. And we want to position ourselves again to take advantage of it if we can in 3 weeks. Step into the market and achieve those savings.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, this is our remaining timeline, pending the market stays stable and the savings are an acceptable level. That you can see here we received the credit rating a little bit sooner than what we expected. So we got that today, which is great. So there's a chance we may take a look at moving a week earlier. Potentially we could maybe do that. It just kind of depends on the schedule and where we see the market. So over the next couple of weeks, there's a good chance we'll get this done for you and, we'll report back and so you can have a report on how everything transpired. So with that, I think that concludes my presentation. And as Mr. Beecher mentioned, authorizing, approving what you have in front of you allows us to move forward. And as long as the market persists, your municipal advisor will consult with Mr. Beecher and recommend that if the market is right, that we'll proceed with selling the COPs for you.
No further discussion or questions? All right, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 22-08, a resolution of the Board of Education of Santa Maria Bonita District authorizing the execution and delivery of a ground lease agreement as presented. I'm not reading the whole thing.
I second that motion.
Mr. Lara has moved and Ms. Corral second the board adopt resolution 22-08. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item 11B, 2021-22 audit report of the Santa Maria Bonita School District. Mr. Beecher? Thank you, Mr. Barcy.
So joining us tonight via Zoom is Rick Essler. He's our, I believe Rick's joining us, right? Yeah, Rick is joining us, and you're on.
Yeah.
To present the report, Mr. Essler kind of led the effort, did much of the heavy lifting around our audit procedures, and is a really good partner in making sure that what you get tonight in our audit is good to go and ready to be approved by the county. It's actually already been provided to the county. While our deadline to prepare and provide this report to you was relaxed a little bit during COVID, that deadline wasn't relaxed at the county at this time. So we actually had to provide them that report in advance of board approval, but we made sure that they were aware of that condition. And so we're here tonight with Mr. Essler to share the results of the annual audit. Go ahead, Mr. Essler.
Okay, thank you. I imagine I'm not sharing a PowerPoint slideshow yet.
Negative.
Nothing.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Just your glorious voice over the speaker.
Looking for my Zoom panel. Still nothing.
Mr. Essler, are you able to see the board's video right now?
Yeah.
Try clicking on that one time. And then look towards the bottom of the screen to see if you see the option for share screen.
I see a green arrow here. And then there was a Zoom. Well, did you guys receive an email, a copy of the slideshow?
That's what we're checking right now. One moment, sir, we'll let you know.
Well, I went through this with Brian, the IT guy, and we had it set up, I thought. Well, maybe. No. Well, do you want me to, do you guys have a hard copy that you can work off of or something like that, and I can make my comments? Or?
Matt?
I think we're going to have a copy for it in just a moment. Give us just about 45 seconds.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I thought we had this all ready to go.
Mr. Hollinshead, can we possibly move forward with an item and then Mr. King can maybe work with getting that to us?
That was the query we were going to just ask. So we can move on to is item C something we can move on to, Matt, while we're waiting? Or is that another thing? Okay, so moving on to.
We should be good with item C.
C?
Or no, We
D.
want to conjoin item C and item B.
Yeah, so,
So D would probably be.
so move on to item 11D, award of RFP number 5247, unarmed security guard services. This is a rebid. Ms. McKnight probably is my guess.
Ms. McKnight, your mic's not on.
I need the red. Okay. So all of the procurement board items tonight on the agenda were all conducted utilizing an RFP procurement method. Utilizing an RFP method allows the district to take into consideration factors outside of cost. Proposals are ranked and scored based on project-specific criteria by an evaluation committee, and the recommendation for award may not be the lowest bid or the lowest cost proposal. The RFP method is primarily used when there's a service component to the project. As you'll notice in the title, this is a rebid, and this is not the first time that these services have been brought to the board. In August 2022, the board awarded a contract to Bomar Security to provide unarmed security guard services. Bomar was unable to staff the services, and in September, the agreement was terminated for cause, and Bomar was notified the district would be rebidding the project. This item tonight is a result of the rebid process. So the request for proposal calls for qualified firms to provide proposals for unarmed security guard services at each of the district's 4 junior high school campuses. The scope of work requires 2 unarmed security guards per site, 2 rotating unarmed security supervisors, 2 patrol vehicles, and the contract term is 3 months, and then it will continue on a month-to-month basis until it is no longer required. The technical specifications were prepared by district staff. A notice calling for the request for proposals was posted on Planet Bids, and it was advertised in the Santa Maria Times. 56 registered vendors received direct notification of the solicitation. 17 prospective bidders downloaded the solicitation documents, and 8 proposals were received and opened on November 21st. An evaluation committee consisting of 3 district staff members was formed to evaluate and score the submitted proposals based on the cover letter of intent, a questionnaire, prior experience and references, and then cost. Quest National Security is the highest ranked proposer with 92 points. Quest National Security proposal meets all of the requirements as outlined in the RFP documents and is deemed responsive to the specification. I'd also like to mention that Quest National Security's main office may not be local, but they are a state of California registered MBE, minority-owned business, as well as a WEBE, woman-owned business. And staff is recommending awarding a contract for RFP 5247 to Quest National Security. And Mr. Zimmerman is here in case you have further questions.
Who is staffing the schools as right now? There's no on-campus.
Yes, so we started the school year because we were still waiting. So we contracted monthly with Quest until Bomar we gave them time to try to fill the contract. So we were with Quest up until that point. And so we've been using them ever since. I did want to mention that we have recruited for bilingual staff. 60% of their staff are bilingual for Quest. They all take SB 1626 training to ensure that's a security guard training that they have to have in order to work on a school campus. So for example, they intervene in conflicts. If there was a fire, they'd grab a fire extinguisher. They wouldn't just call 911. They would take care of that. If there was an issue, their training in order to intervene is really to get in the middle of students and to keep them apart. So not going hands-on, not doing any kind of CPI, things like that. So those are the basics of the security guards.
So the same 2 that show up in the morning are there all day, or they're rotating?
So there are 2 per site. So every junior, the 4 junior highs have 2 per site, plus there are 2 supervisors that go and fill in when people have breaks. So at all times, the junior highs will have 2 security guards on campus. And There's something else I was gonna mention. I forgot. But there are two supervisors that do cover that. So yes.
And the same two security people are assigned to the site so that they become familiar with the students and the staff and
Yes, and at the beginning of the year, because it was only month to month, there was a little bit of inconsistency, but they've really, because they know they have the contract now, there's more stability. We are meeting with all junior high admin on Tuesday at 9 a.m. along with Quest Security to go over expectations one more time of what we expect as a district and as a site, because these will be the consistent members at each school site. So yes, they have, it will be a consistent group, and they do, I think there was a question about, do they recruit from out of the area? And it's all local. And I've actually run into some of my old students at some of the sites who are now security guards. So they're homegrown, they're here.
That's good to know. Thank you for clarifying the scope of their responsibilities. And I had the question about, how much interaction would they have in case there was an altercation? And so thank you for that. And all positions are full-time. So
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And it's 3 months and then on a month-to-month basis.
Correct.
So if at 3 months and there's some hiccup or something, cut ties and rebid.
No, if it's a matter of, if we are able to do something in here in-house with our own staff, we would be able to do that. But until then,
Yeah.
Quest is on 3 months for sure. But then
Yeah.
after that, they're going.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, if there's no further discussion or questions, we'll entertain.
John, I have a
motion.
question. I have some questions.
Go for it.
And how are reference? I noticed that you all have there's this part C, prior experience and references. How do you all check the references of these folks?
That's done through the Quest has a screening process. They make sure that they are TB tested, their background screened. They check the letters of reference. So Quest does their own. They do their own hiring process, and then and I work collaboratively with the captain. If there are any issues with any employees, they're very responsive. So we have that relationship.
And then can you all break down? I noticed you all list the monthly costs. What is the hourly rate for these employees?
You want to take it? I've got it
Your
right
eyes
here
are
too.
better than mine.
I don't know about that. Okay, so the guards are $31.25 per hour. And supervisors are $37.10 per hour. And then we also pay $55 a day per vehicle. So it's $110 for the vehicles.
And Ms. McKnight, that's the billing rate, or is that the actual rate that the guards are paid?
That is the billing rate.
The billing rate. Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I was clear on that and that we all understood that.
And then do you happen to know what types of vehicles these are?
Brand?
No, just like, for example, like, do they bring on our campuses like golf carts?
No,
Or
no, they park, in staff parking or on the parking lots, but they do not bring them on campus. No.
So they're on foot then, basically.
So it's for the supervisors to go and relieve. So they're going to drive between the two sites back and forth in order to relieve the staff that need breaks. So they just keep it in the parking lot and parking spaces. Yeah.
I really also want to appreciate that you all highlighted the fact that this is a minority-owned business and a women-owned business, because as a district, we literally contract millions of dollars, right, worth of business, and so it does matter, right, where we allocate our funding, and that initial funding could be funding that actually helps a business grow, especially like small businesses. So I'm really appreciative of you all bringing that to our attention, because I know that that's something that I'm definitely advocating for and want to encourage our district to continue to pursue. Any more questions?
Motion?
I'll motion to move for award of RFP 5247 unarmed security guard services.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Lawrence. Been moved by Ms. Cabral and seconded by Mr. Lara that the board approve the award of RFP number 5247, unarmed security guard services rebid to Quest National Security, as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll move back to item 11B, 2021-22 audit report for the Santa Maria Bonita School District. We good?
Can you folks hear me now?
We can hear you, Rick.
Okay. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can.
We don't see you or your presentation until now. We're good to go.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, my little toolbar down at the bottom was disappearing. And I had to, I noticed that it was only accessed like for a couple seconds and then it would go away and I had to kind of chase that around there a little bit. So anyway, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, my name is Rick Essler and I'm here with Hyde Bailey, your district auditors. And I'm attending the meeting tonight to present the audited financial statements for as of June 30th, 2022. And we use this slideshow, that format that the managing partner in the personal office put together, Bill Williams, for Zoom meetings. And we just kind of update it annually and go forward with it. It's become pretty popular and pretty useful. So anyway, you are seeing the first slide, the Santa Maria audited financial statements, June 30th, correct? Just
Yes, sir.
okay. So the next slide down, my computer's acting kind of weird.
We've
So
got
that-
process, sir.
I'm sorry.
The audit process.
Yeah.
Slide.
Yeah. So when Bill put this together, he started with this audit process slide, and the first part of that slide was to thank everybody. And I'm glad he designed this thing that way because I'm glad that's right up front. We know that we ask for a lot of stuff. And we know people are working very hard to get us all these things we ask for. And we want everyone to know that we know how much we're asking for and that we appreciate all the help. And so he put that first, and I'm glad he did. And I'll just reiterate it. We appreciate it very much. We appreciate being your audit firm, and it's just something we just don't take for granted. So the next thing that Bill wanted to mention on this slide was in the audit process slide. I'm kind of skipping here. It's kind of a little bit weird how this is acting right now. But anyway, was the audit process in terms of kind of like phases. The audit takes about a year. It starts out with site level work, attendance, and that sort of thing. ASB. Kind of in the middle of the year moves into interim, internal controls, compliance, and that kind of thing. That sort of work. And then it moves towards final, and that's where we get the DAP files and the unaudited actuals and start testing balances and compiling a report. And then after that's done, if I can get my thing to move down. Well, it's very, very weird. I don't know why it doesn't want to skip to the next slide. Well, the next slide that you would have seen talks about what type of report resulted from all that audit work, and there it is. This is that moving really slowly for some reason. That I'm not sure why, but anyway, and there's kind of three areas. There's financial statement, federal, and state. And so what this is saying here is that the independent auditor's report was unmodified. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects of financial statements, the financial position. So what that's saying is there's no findings, and it's an unmodified report in terms of the financial statements. Basically the same thing for federal. There was one little hiccup with state compliance, with independent study, but this is not something that, fiscally impacts the district. And this was something that happened at so many districts this year. It was confusing, what the rules were a little bit for 21-22, which were just specific for that year. And we had lots of districts, big and small, that had to deal with this. And since you could draw on a couple of different years for funding, it didn't result in fiscal impact on districts. And it was a very common thing, but it was just one of those things that a lot of people had to deal with, and it was resulted in findings that we were kind of stuck with, but kind of sort of harmless in the sense that it was it didn't impact the districts fiscally. So okay, there we go. The next part that Bill kind of wanted to bring out was components of the audit report. And I think the reason he put management discussion analysis in the lead in that part is because it's kind of a report in a report. If you want to see, how the district's doing quickly, and not read through a whole report, but get kind of a pretty good comprehensive idea and compare the current audit year with the prior audit year, the MD&A, as we call it, is a good place to go. Like I said, it's kind of like a little report in a report, and you can get a lot, very comprehensive, very quickly right there. I've pushed the button to go to the next slide, but now, okay, there we go. This part of the components, what Bill was kind of trying to draw a distinction about is the statement in that position, basically versus everything else. The statement in position is, it's like a balance sheet, and your assets and liabilities and your net position and so on. And it's entity wide, and that's why it's going to have your fixed assets and long-term obligations in there. Whereas the like governmental funds, financial statements, you'll have your, the major funds, but your general fund is always a major fund. And then whatever other funds were determined to be major funds. And then a separate column for just, non-major funds. It's set up that way because those are the opinion units. And so the major funds will be their own opinion units, and then everything that's not a major fund will fall into its aggregated opinion units. But if you want to see what makes up that column, then go to the non-major funds and you'll see them all broken out. Another thing that's actually not on this slide, but you have another set, your district is one of the districts have another set of kind of like proprietary financial statements of their own that included cash flow, statement of cash flows. The bullet points on here, the one thing I kind of like to highlight just a little bit is it says additional supplementary schedules. If you are a person that wants to see what's been happening, the expenditures federally at the district, if you want to just kind of target that, you're interested in that, go to what's called the Schedule of Expenditures and Federal Awards, and it's a page or two devoted to that. If you want to kind of just hone in on the general fund itself, go to the trends and analysis page. That'll be just the general fund. It'll have the current audit year and 2 years prior, and then I'll have the budgeted year going forward. So it's spans quite a bit of time, and you can see some. You can kind of see how that fund's doing. It's always district's biggest fund. Usually, I don't think I've ever seen it any other way. One thing I want to kind of note here, kind of in about a little bit higher than the middle of the page. It says, please note the implementation of GASB 87 had an impact on beginning balance. When you see restatement this year is similar to GASB 84 last year when Fund 08 became a governmental fund in 21. Well, in 22, GASB 87 decided that some leases had a right of use asset while also a lease liability, and the net of that impacted people's beginning balance and beginning statement of position. And in your case, it's 11,000. This is everywhere that's implemented GASB 87, which is most places, has had this. So it's not a bad restatement. It's not a problem with the district or anything like that. It's just the implementation of GASB 87. And then, so those are kind of like the components of the report. Bill kind of put a section or two in here about some key numbers like net position, that's looking good. And then just some of the highlights, the bigger items in terms of the, debts and liabilities and that sort of thing. But there's one other thing that we really want to make sure we mention, and it's down there about 4 arrows down the page or the slide. This is net pension obligation, and it goes into the amount of it, and it says, which is about half of the prior year liability due to a large state contribution to the STRS Trust. And we just want to make sure we note that, so when people are reading the report and they say, oh, wow, it really dropped a lot. That's why. It's, at first we looked at it, it's like, is this right? Or, but that's why it's such a big drop there. So the next page, next slide there, kind of some more numbers, key numbers. General fund increased by 34.7 million. Reserves are holding at where you've targeted them, and we don't have a going concern issue. And ADA has dropped significantly over the past 2 years, which is also very, very, very common this year or the year 2022. Everybody's experiencing that. So that's pretty much the highlights without going, deep into the report itself. Those are the main things that we wanted to mention and draw some distinctions from prior year, like the restatement and the fact that the state contributed so much to STRS. The report, it's a good report. There's no fiscal impacts that we're concerned about. No going concern issues, no budget issues, no reserve issues, or anything that we're worried about. So unless somebody has some questions, which we'd be glad to listen to, and if I can't answer them, I'll be glad to get Bill involved. So once you guys have a good answer, that's pretty much the highlights that I wanted to make sure got covered.
Thank you for that. Any questions or discussion? We'll entertain a movement.
I move. I move to that. Okay. The Board of Education accepts the 2021 audit report for the Santa Maria Bonita School District as presented.
And I'll second.
Been moved by Mrs. Corral and seconded by Mrs. Cordero that the board accept the 2021-22 audit report for the Santa Maria Bonita School District as presented. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to 11C, corrective action plan in response to management letter items as a result of the 2021-22 annual financial audit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hollinshead. We will have Mr. King. We'll actually have 2 Brians to speak to you tonight on this item to make sure, and as it does involve independent study, which is in Dr. Zimmerman's shop, they'll both describe for you what we're doing about what Mr. Essler described.
Yes, and before we just begin real quick, I don't apologize to the board for the audio. We'll make sure that we do a run through so that the audio is a little bit better when we have presentations that take this way. I apologize.
And is there any legal precedence for having that many Bryans in one place?
Good one.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. So since the district had a finding that Rick mentioned per ed code and the county office required to create a corrective action plan. That's the one-page document that's attached to the action item in the board packet. I did want to note that this attendance independent study finding has no fiscal impact to the district. No important financial decisions were made based upon this error. And as Rick pointed out, our auditor, many districts had a similar finding in 21-22. So the official wording for the finding was, during the attendance audit, discrepancies were noted for 5 of the 14 contracts tested. There were no student signatures on these students' master agreements. Therefore, it was determined those master agreements were out of compliance and the related apportionment days of attendance credited should not have been claimed. And the corrective action plan is the staff at Santa Maria Bonita School District will perform a thorough review of all forms in each student's file, regardless of type of instruction involved, in order to verify that all paperwork has been completed correctly. This process will allow staff to promptly contact parents, teachers, or students to obtain any missing required information before commencement. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Zimmerman to go over it a little more.
Yes, just a little background is last year, because of the shelter in place, there were a lot of people that were hesitant to come in and sign those contracts. And we had 429 students on independent study to start the school year last year. 103 students finished on independent study because they had to meet certain criteria to continue on independent study. This year, we only have 19 students that are on independent study. And so this year we have it refined through a process where it's submitted through Google Forms. It goes through a number of set of eyes. And if the form is not completed correctly, a family outreach advocate will go to the home, have it signed by the student, by anybody that needs a signature. If we were to go into another, we call it lockdown or shelter in place again, where we wouldn't be leaving, we would use Sign Now technology to send that to the parents and have them digitally sign that, and students and everyone else involved.
So this was over multiple districts, not just ours, like you said, Mr. King, that this was during the shelter in place, and majority of this was taking place.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
From then.
Yeah. Last year is a finding for a lot of districts in the state. So we're not alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll recommend that the Board of Education accept the 2021-2022 corrective action plan as presented.
Been moved by Mr. Valencia, seconded by Ms. Cordero, that the board accept the 2021-22 corrective action plan as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We'll move on to item. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Item 11E, award of RFP 5248 portable two-way radios rebid.
Good evening again. So as the title states, this is a rebid, which means there's a little history behind it. So in October 2022, the district bid portable two-way radios as a low bid procurement, which, as we discussed earlier, an RFP allows us to take other factors into consideration. This was a low bid, meaning cost was the only thing we could consider. The low bidder submitted an incomplete bid response, and the second low bidder had an extended lead time of 210 calendar days for delivery, which would not meet the district's needs. Therefore, at the November board meeting, staff recommended that the board reject all bids with the intent of rebidding the project as an RFP, allowing the district to take into consideration lead time as well as cost. So the board item tonight is a result of that rebid process. So the project called for proposals from qualified firms to provide and program 485 portable two-way radios. The technical specifications were prepared by district staff, and the notice calling for proposals was advertised in the Santa Maria Times and posted on Planet Bids. A total of 81 registered vendors received direct notification of the solicitation, and 3 proposals were opened and received on December 20th. An evaluation committee consisting of 3 district staff members was formed to evaluate and score the proposals based on their cover letter of intent, their product lead time, their on-site programming plan, and warranty information, and finally cost. The main difference that you're going to see in the scoring, because it's pretty varied, we got quite a difference there.
Yeah.
So the main difference that you're seeing in the scoring is the lead time as well as the cost. Golden State's proposal offered a lead time of 5 days from receipt of purchase order. Golden State Communications proposal meets all of the requirements as outlined in the RFP documents. They're the highest ranked firm. They are deemed responsive to the specifications, and staff is recommending awarding a contract for RFP 5248 to Golden State Communications.
Say again, how many vehicles purchasing?
485.
Now, what's the range? Is the range going to be able to make it across like from the office to the out to the yard to the, the farthest part if they're out there on the field playing?
Yes, as far as I know, all our site radios can communicate anywhere within the site to the office.
Okay. And they'll all just be programmed specifically to each site then?
That's correct, yes.
Is there capability to go in a different channel to, say, Sousa Center or food services or anything like that, or is it strictly for site within the site use?
That's the intent, is only for site use. So it's not like an admin radio where we have communication across the board to all school sites. These are just, the intent is only to be used at the school site. Who currently uses the radios? It could be a multitude of support staff.
Did we current? Let's start with the radios. The radios that are currently in use, number one, how old are they? And number two, where did they come from?
So a majority of the site radios that we have right now are Motorola radios, which are the ones that we're purchasing now. So they do communicate with each other. So there's not going to be any issues with communication with existing radios and new radios. They're still going to be able to communicate. I don't know the exact year that we went into this program where we purchased radios for all our sites. I can get that information for you and provide it for you.
That's all right. Was just wondering.
I know that a lot of these radios will be used by the sites to replace older radios that aren't working as they were initially. So this is going to be an improvement for them. But they also have other uses just to provide these for support staff to be able to communicate with the office whenever they need to.
And is part of this agreement for maintenance also of the radios?
So the bid does not include the maintenance of the radios, but if there are warranty issues with the radios, we'll definitely call on the warranty. But we do actually contract right now with Golden State Communications to service our radios. So we already work with them.
Thank you.
So they'll integrate with the ones that you still have. They'll be using the older ones, or you'll be, just like you said, take out what's broken and add in, or all 485 are going in?
Yes, if they have radios that are no longer working like they should be working, they can use these to replace them. Or if they still have good operational radios, they can just add to their inventory of radios.
All right. Thank you.
I'd like to make a recommendation that the Board of Education approve the award of RFP number 5248, portable two-way radios rebid to Golden State Communications Incorporated as presented.
And I second that.
It's been moved by Mr. Valencia, seconded by Ms. Cabral, that the board approve the award of RFP number 5248, portable two-way radios rebid to Golden State Communications Incorporated as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to item 11F, award of RFP 5253, wide area network and digital transmission services.
This project calls for qualified firms to provide proposals for dark leased fiber for the district-wide area network between the Sousa Center and 20 school sites. The technical specifications were prepared by district staff, and a notice calling for request for proposals was posted on Planet Bids and advertised in the Santa Maria Times. 112 registered vendors received a direct notification about the solicitation, and 2 providers downloaded the solicitation documents. 1 proposal was received. An evaluation committee consisting of 3 district staff members was formed to evaluate and score proposals based on the following factors: vendor qualifications and references, service level agreement and solution description, E-rate eligibility cost proposal. Wave Division Holding LLC proposed proposal is responsive to the specifications. They met the competitive range as established by the evaluation committee. And Mr. Ruthie is going to go into a little more information regarding the services as well as the E-rate eligibility component.
Thank you, my friend.
Oh, and then we need to talk.
I shall. Good evening, board. RFP 52 and 53, or 5253 and 5254, the next one, they relate to each other. So I kind of wanted to give you a little information. I'll stick with 5253, but kind of tie how the two fit together. And so for this particular one, the service we're talking about here is this is the dark fiber that runs from the district office to each one of our schools to allow all the data communication to occur. So that's what allows the internet to move from here out to each school site. It's what allows our phone lines to go from here to each school site. So the easiest analogy to think of is just roadways, right? That's a dedicated roadway, if you will, a data roadway that we have. That's what this service provides. And the provider then ensures that if there's any damage to the roadway, that it's repaired immediately. So we wouldn't have the right of way to say, you know, if there was a break in the middle of Miller Street, we don't have as a district the ability to go and start digging into Miller, but they would because they're the ones that own that fiber. So that's why we go into these sort of relationships. It's very much worth mentioning. This is an E-rate program. Those of you who've been on the board for a couple of years are familiar with E-rate. It's a federal subsidy to make telecommunications and information services more affordable for schools and libraries. So this is available to all school districts. It's based on our free and reduced lunch numbers. And so because we have a lot of students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, we benefit in this program with a very generous subsidy of 90%. So if you're looking at that table on your screen, you see that over the 5 years that the total cost is $1,263,700. But the USAC is going to take 90% of that responsibility over those 5 years. And so the district is only going to be responsible for $123,370 over those 5 years. And if you like to look at it monthly, like I do, because that's how those bills come in, they actually will show up every month. Like all the other utilities show up to the business office. And so USAC will be every month taking care of 18,000 of that, and the district will be responsible for the remaining $2,000 or so. So that's what that looks like on an ongoing basis over this 5-year contract. What questions might you have?
A question that I have is here in the document, it says the annual cost is 1.2 million. And then here on the slide, it says the total commitment over 5 years. So is the 1.2 the annual cost or our cost for the 5-year period?
You're addressing what Ms. McKnight whispered in my ear before I got up here today. Don't forget to tell them about the change to the table. Yeah. So that's a typo on that table. Thank you for pointing out. That is the total cost for the entire 5-year contract. That is not the annual cost. Thank you.
Big difference of the price.
Yes.
Just a couple of million, you know,
Yeah.
just give or take.
Is Wave Division who we use now or who installed our?
So for this particular service, we are not currently using them. We do use them for our internet connection, which is actually the next item we'll be talking about. So we do have a relationship with them and they've been a good business partner.
Okay.
And then as a follow-up, since we only have this one bid, how do we know how competitive they are relative to other?
What I can tell you, and I'm happy to put it in the Friday memo for you, I think you might find it interesting, is that over the years, we continue to get more speed for less money. And that's really a great indicator that we're doing well. And they have metrics that they follow kind of across the board because, they do this all over the nation. So we're looking at pretty kind of standard pricing. But, like a utility, because there's not too many folks in town who do this, it does limit our options, unfortunately. But again, we're pretty confident in this pricing because, again, we're getting a service similar or faster than we've done in the past for less money. So that's always really encouraging.
And then is there a reason why we're doing a 5-year contract versus a 1, a 2, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, the service and the needs don't really change with this particular one. This is called dark fiber. And what that means is that we light the fiber. We put our optics. We control how fast this fiber goes. So there's really nothing that's going to change over those 5 years because we control both ends. And so it's going to go as fast as we need it to go based on the equipment we put on it. So there's really no need to come and look at it again each year because we control it. So at any point, if we determine we need more speed, we don't need to reach out to them. We can change the equipment on either end and get the additional speed we need. So it's just a good business move to go ahead and kind of get it locked in place so we can focus on other things and not have to just come and address the thing that would just be a repeat of service.
All right. I'll move that the Board of Education approve the award of a contract for RFP number 5253 Wide Area Network and Digital Transmission Services to Wave Division Holdings LLC, DBA Astound Business Solutions as presented.
And I'll second that.
Moved by Mrs. Cordero, seconded by Mrs. Cabral, that the board approve the award of contract for RFP 5253 Wide Area Network and Digital Transmission Services to Wave Division Holdings LLC, doing business as Astound Business Solutions. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move on to item 11G, award of RFP 5254 Internet Service Provider.
Thank you once again. So with this one now, before when we were talking about the roadways of how we get the data between the district office and each school site, now we're actually talking about the actual internet connection. So just like each of us pay a fee at our own homes to have access to the internet, this is the contract we have in place so the district has access to the internet to share amongst all the school sites. And so it is about providing a dedicated connection. Like I mentioned, that connection starts here at the district office. It's where we get our internet connection. It goes through several filters before it goes out to each school site. And as the data comes back to make sure that our students and staff are getting safe access to the internet. Again, this is another subsidized program through E-rate. So again, we're taking advantage of the 90% discount. So on this one, this is a 5-year contract. It's considerably less for the total term of the contract. So the total cost over the 5 years is $273,000. And you can see that again, the district is going to be responsible for 90% of that. And so on the monthly, that's just a bill for going to have different glasses on $456 on the monthly.
And again, it says annual cost.
Yes, again, sorry. The same person, I'm going to point out myself, made that mistake. Sorry about that.
Follow-up question is the speed I noticed was, I think it's 20, is it gigabytes per
Yeah, that's
second?
correct. Yep.
That sounds like extremely uber fast speed. Now, do we have it at that amount just because of capacity issues when we have such a large district, or are we just going super hard?
Yeah. So currently, our current contract is for 10. Is what we're currently contracted for. So this is going to double the amount of speed we have. What I'm happy to share, like kind of similar to the other one, is we're actually getting twice the speed for less cost per year. And what we're really trying to do is future-proof this to ensure that we have enough bandwidth. When we don't, things stop immediately. Phones stop working. Zoom stopped working. Students aren't able to access their content. They can't get onto their Chromebooks. We really need to make sure that this is something that we always have a wealth of. And fortunately, the way this works is there's not a huge difference in the cost of a 10 gig versus a 20 gig. And in our case, we actually got the 20 gig cheaper than we've got in the past. So again, we're going to take advantage of that opportunity. We do know with the camera project coming on board, that those are all cloud-based cameras that go into the junior highs. So those are going to have considerable bandwidth needs, and we wanted to make sure that we future-proof that. So we are being aggressive with that number. There is a clause in the contract that if we needed more speed, there is a mechanism for us to do that. And if we did that, we'd bring that to the board. If we found out, let's say 2 or 3 years in, that we actually needed to go to 30 or 50 or such, there's a mechanism in our contract to allow for that conversation to happen. And if that does happen, like I said, we'll bring that back to you.
Yeah, I'll move recommendation that the Board of Education approve the award of a contract for RFP 5254 Internet Service Provider to Wave Division Holdings LLC, doing business as Astound Business Solutions as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Ms. Cabral and seconded by Mr. Valencia that the board will approve the award of contract for RFP 5254 Internet Services provider to Wave Division Holdings LLC, doing business as Astound Business Solutions. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, guys. We'll move on to item 11H, public hearing on the California School Employees Association Sunshine proposal for the successor of the collective bargaining agreement for classified bargaining unit members expiring on June 30th, 2023.
Oh, there we
Yeah.
go. Good evening,
Okay,
everybody.
okay, so there,
Public hearing.
yeah, public hearing. Is there anybody wishing to speak on public hearing? Hearing or seeing nobody, I will close public hearing. Move on to item 11I, discuss and approve said CSEA Sunshine proposal for the successor of the collective bargaining agreement for classified bargaining unit members.
Thank you. The California School Employee Association, CSEA, and our Santa Maria Elementary Chapter 129 have submitted their sunshine proposal for the successor of their collective bargaining agreement expiring June 30, 2023 for the classified bargaining unit members. CSEA is requesting the Board of Education consider opening the following articles. And with that, I want to add that we have two board members here, Melissa Gutierrez and Jean Blackwell, who are happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding their articles on behalf of their members. So, and they're up on the screen as well. Article 3, evaluation procedures. Article 6, pay and allowances. Article 7, health and welfare. Article 8, scheduled holidays. Article 9, vacation plan. Article 10, leave of absence. Article 11, transfers. Article 13, grievance procedures. Article 17, terms and renegotiations. Article 23, the Classified Labor Management Council, known as CLMC. Article 24, the duration, the bilingual stipend MOU, and the Job Analysis Committee MOU to be embedded into the contract. Additionally, CSEA has an interest in incorporating all MOUs and side agreements into our agreement.
Some questions that I have is just for the sake of the public, but also for my own,
you.
just to make sure I understand
Mm.
what's taking place. So when it talks about the California School Employees Association, that's in reference to basically a synonym for our union, our classified union.
Correct.
Okay. And then it says, their sunshine proposal. Can you define that, please?
What we're doing is bringing forward to the public those articles that we will be reopening at the table as we negotiate our contract to succeed our expiring contract, which ends on June 30th of 2023, and their preparation of advising the public of what articles those will be. And in the following pages, they actually outline some of the interests that they have in each of the articles so that the public knows what we'll be discussing and negotiating at the table.
Go ahead.
Oh, and yeah, thank you for explaining that a bit, because in the language it talks about for the successor to, and
Yes.
for most folks, that's
Correct.
like legalese, if you will,
Yes.
or educationese.
Yes.
So that's just basically another way of saying this is what's going to take the place of the contract that currently exists. Correct?
That's right. That's correct.
And the collective bargaining agreement, can you please give a basic definition of that for the public as well?
That is their contract. The collective bargaining agreement has a list of articles from 1 to, I think, 25. And that outlines all the terms and conditions of their employment and what they practice in their association. And it is the contract is like the contract we have right now was a 3-year contract from 2020 to 2023. And that is negotiated as well. The term of their contract, the duration of the contract is negotiated at the table as well.
And in the language wherein it discusses classified bargaining unit members, is that the specific team of the classified union who is at the negotiation table with the district?
That's all the classified members of our unit. Yes, and we negotiate together to create a contract that is both the CSEA, Chapter 129, and the district as well.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Ms. Gutierrez and CSEA for this is a little bit of a different presentation than we've had in the past, and for them expressing or at least beginning the generalized outline of what the interests are as far as the interest-based bargaining process goes, so that there is a general understanding of each article, what the interest is that's being presented. I think, that's what we've been striving to do, is that interest-based bargaining model. So I appreciate that, and keeping it in a fashion where they can present it here to us without it being an actual bargaining situation. I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you, guys.
Very helpful.
I have some follow-up questions, John, unless any other board members have any questions at this point. A question that I have, sorry, did you have a question then? Is currently, there's, high inflation, more than folks are used to anyway, right? Cost of living also seems to be going much higher here locally in our community as well as throughout the country. So something that I'm wondering is does our current employee pay scale take current inflation and the cost of living into account?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that we continuously do so that we can recruit and retain employees is look at what our ranges look like, and that we're competitive with not only our local districts, but those districts that are like us. And so that's another thing that we look at together as a team of district and employees as we negotiate.
That's great news. And then the follow-up that I have is, have we done some type of like audit where we look at, it sounds like you kind of explained this a little bit already, but do we do any type of like audit, either annually or every couple of years, of the competitiveness of the salaries of our classified and certificated employees?
Well, we discussed that because it's been a long time since we've done any kind of study, like a reclassification study. So the district has an interest in looking at proposing a reclassification study so that we can make sure that our schedule is competitive and not out of whack with what the jobs are, because many of our jobs have changed. We have a job analysis committee that continuously looks at different positions and how they've changed. That's proposed either by a manager or proposed by the unit members themselves. And we analyze those jobs, the scope of those jobs, and then the range that we pay. And then when you're doing that, you're looking at not only our local area, but other comparable districts and what they do, so that we are competitive and people want to come work here, and not only come to work here, but stay here, and we're able to retain them. So it's an important function that needs to be done on a regular, on a basis. It's not done every year. It's a difficult thing to do, but certainly it's time that we looked at that we looked at a study of our positions and what our job descriptions look like.
Absolutely. Yeah, I highly agree with that, particularly in light of recent economic events.
Yes.
I'll move that we approve the California School Employees Association Sunshine proposal for the successor to the collective bargaining agreement for classified bargaining unit members expiring on June 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
Been moved by Mrs. Cordero and seconded by Mr. Lara that the board approve the California School Employees Association CSEA Sunshine proposal for the successor to the collective bargaining agreement for classified bargaining unit members expiring on June 30th, 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion passes. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dr. Cameron.
Thank
We'll
you.
move on to public
Thank you.
hearing for the Santa Maria Bonita School District Sunshine proposal for the successor to the collective bargaining agreement for classified bargaining unit members expiring on June 30th, 2023. Seeing or hearing nobody wishing to speak on that, we'll move on to item 11K, discussion and approval said sunshine proposal by the Santa Maria Bonita School District.
Thank you. And now I'm bringing forward the Santa Maria Bonita School District sunshine proposal for the successor of the collective bargaining agreement. Again, ending June 30, 2023 for the classified bargaining unit members. We're asking the board to consider the following articles. Article 5, hours and overtime. Article 6, pay and allowances and mileage. Article 8, that will pertain to the scheduled holiday of Juneteenth. That we're legally bound to negotiate that with our unit. Article 10, leave of absences, and Article 11, transfers. And some of these articles, as you could see, we have in common with CSEA, but we still want to unveil those that we have an interest in bringing forward. As well as all of the articles, like I've been saying, that was presented by CSEA. We're asking that the board approves them. And lastly, other related items and conditions of employment as they may arise during the course of negotiations.
A question that I have is, what happens when our district negotiating team, you mentioned Articles 5, Article 6, right? That's from our district end, right? Things that we're interested in negotiating.
Yes.
And then what happens when, for example, in the previous, the classified union wants to open up additional articles? What takes place then?
They did propose their sunshine proposal includes those articles, and we open up those articles as well as ours. So what we'll start off with would be listing all of the articles that we are reopening, and then we will proceed with the process of interest-based bargaining, which is telling the story for each article and then coming up with interests and then options to relook at the language that exists in the contract right now.
So it sounds like our district negotiating team will look at all the articles that they've mentioned, right? They'll look at the articles that our district staff have said, hey, here's what we are interested in looking at. And then we, come together and hopefully reach, an agreement.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I'm new. I have a question. I'm new.
Okay,
I don't understand. So what we just did was from the bargaining side, and then this is from the district side?
The CSEA, the prior article, the prior item was CSEA's proposal of reopeners. And then this item is the district's interest in unveiling those things that we would like to revisit in the contract that we may have to look at because of changes in the law. There's many changes in the law for leaves, for dependent leave, for bereavement. And then of course your pay and benefits, salary and benefits are always at the table. And then transfers, the interest that the district has in transfers. So we disclose that and explain what our interests are. And then we work on those articles to come to agreement.
Okay.
Together.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Sure.
Didn't we just vote on this?
Yes.
Thanks.
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the Santa Maria Bonita School District Sunshine Proposal for the successor of the collective bargaining agreement for classified bargaining unit members expiring June 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
Moved by Mrs. Cordero, seconded by Mr. Valencia, that the board approve the Santa Maria Bonita School District Sunshine Proposal for the successor to the collective bargaining agreement for classified bargaining unit members expiring on June 30th, 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to item 11.
Thank you.
L. Thank you, Dr. Cameron. We'll move on to item 11L, Resolution 22-10, Black History Month. Dr. McDuffie.
Thank you, President Hollinshead. Black History Month is celebrated throughout the month of February to honor and celebrate the contribution and sacrifices of thousands of African Americans who contributed to shaping the nation and its rich culture, heritage, triumphs, and adversities that are part of our country's history. The month is dedicated to recognizing the meaningful impact that individuals of African descent have made to enrich American culture, expand democracy, strengthen families, and make a better society for all. This year's theme, Black Resistance, focuses on how African Americans have fought oppression from America's earliest days. To commemorate Black History Month, the Board of Education is asked to review and consider for adoption the attached resolution. Thank you.
Mr. Holland said, I noticed some really outstanding paragraphs within the
Please.
resolution.
Yep.
That I wanted to take a moment to highlight, unless other folks had any questions or comments.
We're listening to you now. Go for it.
So one of the items in the resolution reads as follows. It's in the middle of the first page of Resolution 2210. It reads, whereas in 1976, when then President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month, he urged Americans to honor the accomplishments of Black Americans, including the contributions and legacy of activists and civil rights pioneers, such as, but not limited to, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks. So just wanted to take a moment. It just feels really, really good to just say those folks' names out loud, right? People that have shaped our country in such a profound way. Many of us enjoyed the holiday of having Monday off in honor of Dr. King. And so I think that particularly that paragraph stood out to me just because these are examples of many famous Black Americans that we've heard of. But I also want us to remember there are so many unnamed, Black Americans, right? Everyday Americans, right? The folks that are building our homes, cooking food in our kitchens, right? Raising our families. And those names often go unrecognized, but also, deserve recognition. Another paragraph reads, whereas the Santa Maria Bonita School District recognizes that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in his or her own identity and heritage, and to understand, respect, and accept the identity and heritage of others. I love hearing that I think gets to like the heart, I think, of what celebrating things like Black History Month are about, is recognizing our common humanity, which I think is so critical that our young people leave our schools with. The last paragraph that I wanted to highlight was toward the end, the last whereas clause. It reads, the U.S. Social Science Framework for California Public Schools, kindergarten through grade 12, states that the history, curriculum of community, state, region, nation, and world must reflect the experiences of young men, women, and of different racial, religious, and ethnic groups, and must be integrated at every level. And so one of the questions that I have is in what ways are we living this commitment in our district, right, to celebrating Black History Month and culture? So that's a question that I'm not sure if our staff are, prepared to either answer now or next month, but I wanted to see question one, how are we living the commitment? Because something that I don't want to happen is we have this nice sounding resolution, right, that just kind of lives in paper. But the real, heart of the matter is, well, what does this look like in our district and in our schools? And not just during the month of February, but throughout the school year.
Well said, Board Member Valencia. And what we will do is either provide a board update as well as some type of presentation in the month of February during Black History Month to acknowledge that.
Excellent.
If it's, I'd like to move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 2210, Black History Month, as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved by Mrs. Corral, Ms. Corral and Mr. Lara that the board adopt Resolution 22-10, Black History Month, as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollingshead.
Aye. And the motion passes. Thank you, guys. There being no discussion items, I think we can move on to board reports. Oh, we got, oh, yeah, sorry, upcoming meetings. I forgot calendar. Sorry. Thank you very much. Item 12, calendar of upcoming meetings, activities and events. February 4th of 2023 is a special board meeting. February 8th, 2023 is our regularly scheduled board meeting. February 17th of 2023 is the observed holiday for Abraham Lincoln. School district offices will be closed. February 20th is President's Day. Schools and district offices will be closed. And February 22nd will be a regular board meeting. Mr. Lara.
I've only got one thing I want to share, and I was very excited to read it about our teacher, Mr. Steve Waiters at Battle School. I thought that was an awesome article that they published already 3 books and he's working on his 4th. And I think it's just an awesome feeling that his kids and all the kids who are in that school site are just like looking up, we got a writer in our school that's a teacher, and who knows how many kids will want to become writers and get involved in reading his books and get that in them. But that's all I really have. I just thought it was a really awesome article that I saw in the paper. And if they're listening at Battles, shout out to Mr. Waiters and the 6th grade kids and the whole school site. That's all I have.
You can pass. Okay, pass.
Nothing to report.
Of course, school has, just recently resumed a day late. We certainly have experienced some unusual weather and weather patterns. I am happy that there are no significant reports of damage due to the additional rainfall, at least nothing that we are aware of at this point. And while it turned out that, Tuesday, it didn't really rain all that much, I think getting kids to school and home again would have been very problematic, as so many roadways were impacted. The Santa Barbara County School Board Association did meet the first Thursday of the year. Pretty much trying to think. I think a few of the districts down in South County had resumed school already, but most of us were still on winter breaks. We had a very nice presentation from a lady from the Students for Eco Education and Agriculture. And I was delighted to hear that I apparently didn't write down the number of classes in our district that are participating, and it is geared for 3rd grade, but quite a significant number, because my question had been, how is this advertised? Because I really had never heard about it. So that was, and it really just helps our children understand really the importance of agriculture to our community. And actually, while I understand many of our parents work in agriculture, they really probably don't talk about the significance of the work they do and how it impacts our communities. So that was really, really nice. Tomorrow evening from 5 to 6:30, Santa Barbara County Office of Education is offering through YouTube, and you can go to the SBCEO website and it'll click on it. It's a presentation on fentanyl and some of the impacts and things, that we need to be looking at. I'm anxious to see, what will be presented with that. And I would encourage us as board members, if possible, to tune into that, because it is becoming much more pervasive in our area. And I know, I think it was early January, the child in Lompoc that died from just being around it and exposed to it in the home was heartbreaking. So it's here. We need to be mindful of that. And while I know we are addressing social emotional needs of our students, we also need to be mindful of activities that they may be involving themselves in. I know late last fall, they did a presentation, Fighting Back Santa Maria Valley did one at Fessler that really reviewed for parents ways that our children disguise drugs, and they're sitting in plain sight disguised in different containers or different kinds of things that, if parents aren't aware that can be happening, they don't even give it a thought. And so that kind of thing. Scholarship applications today, the date was extended a few days, but they were due for our high school seniors. And if anyone out there listening or in here is interested in serving as an interviewer for the Scholarship Foundation, these are for students who are applying for scholarships, local from, our local district and our schools here. I would encourage you can either contact me directly and I can hook you up, if you will. And once again, this year, the training is via Zoom and our interviews will continue to be via Zoom. So you can do it from the comfort of your own home office computer. I'm sorry?
What scholarship is this?
Santa Barbara Foundation. Santa Barbara Scholarship Foundation is technically what is called. And lots of things coming up. So thank you.
I wanted to begin by wishing all of our staff a happy new year. I know we're already in the middle of January, but this is the first board meeting that we've had celebrating the new year. So I hope everyone and their families are safe and excited about the wonderful work we're going to be doing in our school district to support our young people. Some of the things that I wanted to highlight that I noted from our weekly board information, I want to thank our staff and Dr. McDuffie for sending us some of those things. For example, I noticed there was some local news coverage of our teacher residency program and our partnership with Cal Lutheran. It looks like it's starting off in a really great with great footing. I believe we have 17 candidates of 25 approximately, or maybe 18 now it looks like. So that's really exciting to see because the purpose of it is to diversify our teaching staff. The purpose of it is to hire local also, right? We know that there's so much talent that exists with our classified staff. And I believe many of them, are candidates that are putting themselves out there and making it affordable, right? So the staff that are able to work in our district full time and then being able to take their classes in the evenings and things like that. So I'm really appreciative of the hard work that our staff have put into that, because I think it's going to lead to excellent outcomes to providing us a bigger pipeline for our teaching staff. I also wanted to take a moment because I was reviewing my notes to the CSBA conference that we attended a couple of months ago, the California School Board Association. And one of the topics that was raised, I'm going to mention two of them. One of them was related to ethnic studies in the elementary, middle, and high schools. And it was a fascinating conversation because one of the founders of the Stop Asian Hate movement, who was a professor, I believe, out of San Francisco State University, he talked about how they're using ethnic studies at the high schools to educate students about the damaging effect of discrimination and how that hurts the academic outcomes of our students as well. And so it was really outstanding to hear of innovative work that's happening in elementary, middle, and high schools to educate our students about issues of discrimination, how to be able to spot them, and how to be able to challenge those things when they come up in our own families or in ourselves. And I appreciated that spirit because again, we're approaching February, which is Black History Month. We want to make sure that we're celebrating the contributions of diverse Americans all throughout the year, so that way it doesn't feel like tokenization, which I think is really, really critical. Another thing that they mentioned at the CSBA conference that was really fascinating was the concept of being able to grow your own lettuce using these small containers that can actually grow hundreds of heads of lettuce. So they actually hired in Morgan Hill, I believe it's the Morgan Hill district, where they hired a farmer to essentially like set up these systems where the district could begin to grow its own lettuce, sort of like a farm to table type of approach. Now, it's not enough to feed every single child in the school, but it is enough to feed a substantial number and using a very small and limited amount of space. So these are folks using like very innovative technologies that are using very little water to grow a ton of produce. And so I was really fascinated with that workshop and what people are doing around our state, especially given the fact that we might not remember it now because we've experienced a lot of rain, but our state is also experiencing a lot of drought. And so how are we thinking ahead, right? How are we thinking in terms of saving money as well, since water is getting very expensive as well? So what innovative things are we doing? And I loved hearing our students already thinking about that, right? They want access to healthy food, right? To more options. And what the folks at Morgan Hill was saying is many of our young people, even though they live in an agriculture community, aren't, if you buy lettuce in the grocery store, it might be a couple of days old. Versus if you have some fresh lettuce, right, from say a farmer's market or from farm to table, you can taste the difference, right? And its nutritional value, right, is much more potent. So those are some of the exciting things that I learned about at the conference that I would encourage our district to start looking into as we continue to improve our processes and our nutrition. So thank you all very much. And I'm really excited about a wonderful school year with all of you.
Mr. Lara. I forgot one other thing, since Mr. Valencia brought that out, filled the table. I want to give a shout out to Adams School for their garden. That is awesome that I was there years ago when they were starting it and they were building the boxes and stuff and helping them do the drip and all that. But they did their first harvest, as they were saying, they had romaine, cilantro, fennel, and and they're sharing it with their classmates and for their lunch and stuff. So, I just want to give them a shout out on that program.
And that was what was particularly awesome, right, about this program in Morgan Hill is they're teaching our students, right? They're teaching the students in the district how to do this so that they can improve their job skills, right? Connecting it to science, right? And all those other things. So I'm glad to hear we're doing something like that in our district. This is very different than that, but it's similar in that regard.
And I think to continue the conversation, there are a number of sites that have gardens, but certainly we have an asset in Windset Farms that kids can go on field trips to see hydroponics and get an example of how that works. And certainly those folks are giving a good lesson in how that application can be put to use and applied. So thank you for that. Yeah, the rains were pretty torrential. We all experienced those. I just did a kind of an impromptu spot drop in at Tunnel and Alvin after the last big storm, and they both fared pretty well. Right, the kids were out playing, or that was one of the few days we had where there was a kind of a little bit of relief, and everything seemed to do structure wise and fields wise was doing very well. So that was nice to see and see a lot of kids actually outside, probably needed to be, right. But and also I wanted to commend Dr. McDuffie and thank him and the folks that have attended the strategic thinking meetings the last 2 days in kind of preparing to engage in an ongoing process in looking about how we can reshape things here and really broaden our vantage point and our viewpoint of what we can do and be aspirational about serving our kids, and also his inclusiveness of really placing everybody in the district in that conversation. And by that, I mean, not just certificated or classified staff and thinking of it that way, but literally everybody in every job everywhere, because we all play that role. And I appreciate when you welcome people back, Mr. Valencia, or tell them to have a nice break, because it really, that is what it's all about. It's one of the many things we talked about today was community. And one of the things we want to continue to promote, obviously, is that sense of community, whether it be on a site or, excuse me, district wide. And so I just want to thank you, Dr. McDuffie, for starting the conversation with the folks who were in attendance today, and then continuing to perpetuate and propagate that out throughout the sites and the rest of the district, because I think it's really great, meaningful stuff, and people will be excited when they get to learn more and more about it, as we will.
Thank you. Dr. Hollington, one quick thing that you reminded me of as well is usually, it's my understanding that during springtime, when possible, we start to engage students in college field trips. So if possible, I would like an update of what are the current plans, from different school sites, because I know that the end of the school year can be a very busy time. So if we plan ahead now, right, then hopefully we can make it so that, since during COVID, many of our students missed out on those college visit opportunities, right, either because schools were closed or because of transportation issues. But I would like to hear, what plan is currently in place, or what are folks thinking about? Because I remember when I was at El Camino Junior High School as an 8th grader, we had the opportunity to go to, say, Magic Mountain as an end of the year trip, which was wonderful. But how cool would it be if our students also get to go visit at least a university or two prior to starting their high school years? So if that's possible, I would really appreciate that.
Absolutely. We'll get some information to you about
Thank you.
Well, thank you, President Hollinshead, Board of Education. First of all, welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year. I want to thank staff. I also want to thank our student leaders and advisory team. They do an awesome job. And Board Member Valencia, as we talk about Black History Month next month, it occurred to me that they will be available to talk about what's going on in the district, opposed to maybe staff doing that. I'd love to hear from our students and what's reflected in the schools. As you all know, the return to school from winter break had some challenges. The inclement weather on Monday, January 9th, was enough of a concern to local emergency services and other school districts in Santa Barbara County that all schools in the county made the decision to close on Tuesday, January 10th, which should have been our first day. I don't think our students had a problem with that. I'd like to think they did, but I doubt it. But actually, I'd like to thank our staff, students, and families for being patient and flexible and being able to adjust as we determine the best course of action, and really to keep everyone safe and to reopen schools when advisable. The weather forecasts were certainly very ominous. I'd like to also thank our maintenance and operations crew, who were primary and essential for us on Monday and Tuesday, making sure our campuses and buildings were weathering the storms, so to speak. So the district, along with many of us, will be looking at how we recoup and reimburse, get some reimbursement for that day. So more to come on that, and I'll keep everyone updated on that. So really, I want to discuss something. Board member Valencia talked about the innovation that's going on in Morgan Hill Unified. Yesterday and today, a select group of administrators, I believe all the administrators I'm looking out here, have been a part of strategic thinking. We had a facilitator, my friend Dr. Lindsay Gunn from the Cambrian Group, who came to facilitate this group in talking about strategic thinking, I'm not going to take very long, but we are looking at implementing a strategic plan. But it's more than just a piece of paper that we're wanting to implement. It's a way of thinking. And when we talk about school, we often talk about what we already have, what the system has. And really, it is important that we look at our students first and creating a system that's based upon the students that we have, opposed to trying to take our students and putting them in a system that may not be a fit for them. This thinking is something, the strategic thinking is something to talk about when we talk about innovation, we talk about creation. This is an opportunity for this organization to really become a human organization and to really begin to look at how we use our agency to create the realities we want for our students in the future and to create the aspirations that we want for our students in the future. In March, we'll be going through a strategic planning committee and working through some of the cardinal features of our strategic plan, which includes our mission statement, strategies, our objectives, and our beliefs. That one thing that really brings us together, and it'll be a collective voice, like President Hollins had mentioned. It's not just for our teachers or our classified employees or our administrators, but it's also for our families, for our students, for everyone, our community members, some of our businesses. It's all for everyone to be a part of what we want for our students. And then for us to dream what that looks like. And so I'm excited. I'm overjoyed, in fact, that we can do something different and create a new system of education for our students. And so I want to thank all the folks that participated as we continue this process, as we continue this way of thinking. And I look forward to talking to you more about that and to the community about strategic planning. And that's all I have. So thank you.
That was just enough. It was perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to re-adjourn or return to closed session, and we'll go ahead and close open session unless there's anything else to add. And here we go.